These are all noises that an engine is supposed to make, not. Previously I've mentioned that this car has undergone an engine rebuild. In today's video I'm going to be telling you how that came about, how I went about fixing it, and then in the end how much it cost. This may be more than one video, but I will upload them all at the same time, so they will all be on my channel. So I was driving down this road with the roof down on a summer's afternoon, enjoying the car that I had just bought at the beginning of the week. I was only 4 days into ownership at this point, and I hadn't really got used to the car, so I wasn't used to what sounds it made, how it behaved, and all sorts of things like that. So I was really trying to get used to this car that I just bought. So I was just driving down these roads, really enjoying the car. It was then coming into this village, where usually what I do, and I will do it for you now, there is a wall here that if you accelerate past, the noise of your car bounces off it. So at that point, I was just trying to experience the sound of the exhaust. I then noticed a slight tapping noise. It was very minor, but it didn't sound right to me. And bearing in mind, the reason I bought this car was because my MX-5 that I had previously, the engine had just gone from a knocking noise. So the noise sounded a bit familiar to me, which I hoped that that wasn't the case. From hearing that slight tapping noise just back there, I then made it to this exact lay-by where I left the car because I didn't want to drive it anymore, just in case it was something serious. So I left the car here, and luckily I have a friend who was able to pick me up. Upon going back to his house, we started watching some YouTube videos, going through the forums to hear knocking noise from your Boxster, what could possibly be the issue. Of course, then I read about all sorts of horror stories of bore scoring, IMS failures. These are all things that I was aware of before purchasing the car, but I heard that they affected a very small amount of cars produced. So I thought, couldn't possibly be that. When starting the car, upon coming back, so starting it cold, it was then apparent that it wasn't a light tapping noise, it was a large knocking noise.
That doesn't sound too bad.
Which at this point, as I said, only being 4 days into the ownership of this car, my heart sank. I've heard horror stories of how much this does cost to get put right, and I thought, having just paid for the car, I didn't know whether I'd be able to afford the repairs. So I left it in this lay-by, where I would then come back, as I said, with my friend, and it was clear at that point, with it being the larger knocking noise, the car just needed recovery. So luckily from here to my house is only about 5 miles. So I did drive it home, and as I drove it, it went from a light tap to an intermittent tap to then about a mile from my house, it was a very clear, consistent knocking noise. With it sat on my driveway, it was very apparent that it did need serious engine work, whether that be a rebuild or an engine replacement. So from what I determined, I had 3 main options. And so the first option was to just do an engine replacement, so to source another engine and then replace it with the one in this car. To do that, there are 2 options again. I could go through a brand new engine or a used one. So I had a look into this and I got some quotes from garages. A used engine for this car, because they don't typically go wrong in the same way as ball score or IMS failure, it is quite hard to find an engine for the 3.2 Boxster S, is what I found at least anyway. I was able to find a used engine from a company called Fast Car over in France, and they would be able to send the engine to me or to a garage of my choice to get it fitted. That would cost about $3,500 to $4,000 for the engine itself, and then fitting I would probably be looking at around $5,500 plus VAT, so $6,600 to put a used engine in this car. The second thing I thought about was getting this engine rebuilt, so taking it out, stripping it down, seeing what went wrong, and then putting the bits back together. The reason I didn't immediately jump to it was because rebuilding the engine, I still didn't know what was wrong, so it could be an open-ended bill. I could get a quote for the investigation work, then going forwards from that, whether it needs new parts in the engine, I wouldn't know. It was open-ended, so it could cost again the same amount as the car, depending on what went wrong. The third option that I had was to sell this car just as a spares and repairs. I did explore the option of listing this car on Facebook and Gumtree just to see what I could get for it if someone else was willing to take on the project. So I listed it for offers. I was accepting offers. Well, I got a lot of time wasters offering me about 1,500 quid for the car. Another listing that I did find on eBay, in fact, was which was quoting £3,000 for the engine to come out, strip it down to see what's wrong with it. And this was from a company called AMS. But I did get on the phone with Angus there a few times just to talk through options. Then as a result of talking to Angus at AMS, I decided I would be going with them because they gave me the option to get the car to them, however I was able to do that. They would then take the engine out, strip it down, find out what's wrong, and then if my engine was in a condition to be put back into this car being rebuilt, they would do it. If not, I would be able to hold out for a reconditioned engine to put in. So it did keep budget in mind. So I'll leave this first video here. In summary, I'd covered about 300 miles in the car having bought it. I wasn't able to go back to who I bought it from, as I looked at the paperwork that I signed for buying this car, and it does strictly say sold as seen, which of course I was excited about buying my first Porsche. This is a car I've always wanted. I did not read through the contract. So in the next video, I'll be talking about how I got this car put right. It will already be up by now. What was the cause of this issue? Was it something that I had done? Had I bought a car that was knowingly sold to me with an issue? Or is it something that no one could have seen? And following that, of course, how much it cost. So if you are interested, do like and subscribe, and I'll be back with plenty more videos.